सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्रयवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नमो तस्सा भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा बुद्धं शरणं गच्छामि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि अशीवो वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टामा यतशाय वहिष्ठाय शेम श्मा इस्राएल Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
जय लंबोदर पाहिमाम जय लंबोदर पाहिमाम जय लंबोदर पाहिमाम जय लंबोदर पाहिमाम जगदम्बा सुत रक्षमा भक्ति मुदं देहि मां निज भक्ति मुदं देहि मां जय लंबोदर पाहि मां। Sadguru Sai Ram Guru Sadguru Sadguru Sai Ram Guru Sadguru Sadguru Sai Ram Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Guru Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Guru Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Guru Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Sadguru Sai Ram.
Sadguru Sai Ram.
Sai Guru Sai Guru Sai Mahesha.
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 Sai Mahesha, Sathya Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mahesha, Sathya Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mam Pahimam Pahi 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 Mahesha.
Parti Puri Sai Deva Sai Mahesha.
Parti Puri Sai Deva Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mahesha, Sathya 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 Sai Mahesha.
Guru Sadguru Sai Ram.
Guru Sadguru, Sadguru Sai Ram.
Guru Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Guru Sai Ram, Sri Sai Ram.
Guru Sadguru Sai Ram.
Guru Sadguru, Sadguru Sai Ram.
Sai Guru Sai Guru Sai Mahesha.
Sai Guru Sai Guru Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mahesha, Sathya Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mahesha, Sathya Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mam Pahimam Pahi Mahesha.
Sai Mam Pahimam Pahi Mahesha.
Parti Puri Sai Deva Sai Mahesha.
Parti Puri Sai Deva Sai Mahesha.
Sai Mahesha, Sathya 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 Sai Mahesha.
Sadguru Sai Ram. Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam Bhaje.
Shri Ram Charanam, Shri Ram Charanam, Shri Ram Charanam Bhaje.
Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam Bhaje.
Shri Ram Charanam, Shri Ram Charanam, Shri Ram Charanam Bhaje.
Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam, Sri Ram Charanam Bhaje.
Shri Ram Charanam, Shri
चरणम श्री राम चरणम श्री राम चरणम भजे
श्री राम चरणम श्री राम चरणम श्री राम चरणम भजे
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
भूपाल चूड़ामणि
गोपाल चूड़ामणि
भूपाल चूड़ामणि
गोपाल चूड़ामणि
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई रामं
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई रामं
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई रामं
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई रामं
श्री राम चरणं भजे
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 सत्य साई 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 राम चरणं भजे
श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं भजे
श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं भजे
श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं भजे
श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं श्री राम चरणं भजे
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
वैदेही रामं वैकुण्ठधामं
भूपाल चूड़ामणि
गोपाल चूड़ामणि
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई राम
आत्माभिरामं प्रभु साई रामं
श्री राम चरणं भजे
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 सत्य साई 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 राम चरणं भजे श्री राम चरणं
श्री राम चरणं श्री
Sai Ram, brothers and sisters, what a beautiful start to tonight's program. So I have the awesome pleasure of introducing tonight's guest speaker, or conductor for tonight's bhajan workshop. His name is Brother Rushi Thanawala. Now, many of you would have seen the flyers that would have been posted on the various chats concerning Brother Rushi's background. So we know that he has been in the Sai family. His family has been devoted to Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba for over 55 years. He is currently working as a supervisor at a very prominent medical facility. He actually helped invent the Pfizer vaccine. He works at Pfizer. I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but yeah. So he's a brilliant, accomplished scientist, and apart from his professional career, Brother Rushi is dedicated to Swami tenfold. He was served as the YA coordinator in Philadelphia, the devotional coordinator in New Jersey City, and the chair of the International Young Adults Music Subcommittee. Presently, he serves as the Center Vice President at the New Jersey Sai Center, Jersey City, and is the Deputy International Young Adults Coordinator. So basically, he runs the young adults around the world. So, Brother Rushi, I just want to introduce you with a warm round of applause as you start tonight's bhajan workshop. I also would like to say I'm very proud to have you as my friend as well. I'll add that to the bio.
Hari Naam, Hari Naam, Hari Naam Kevalam Kalo Nasti Kalo Nasti Nasti eva gatiranyatha. Chanting the name of Hari, the name of Shri Sathya Sai Baba, is the easiest way of salvation in this Kali Yuga, this age of darkness. Chanting the name of Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba is the easiest and the fastest way to bring us into this golden age where we constantly live in the divine presence of our dear Lord. Om Shri Sai Ram, dear brothers and sisters and respected elders, I offer myself at the divine lotus feet of my Guru, God and best friend, Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. Thank you so much, Brother Vishaal and Brother Shristi, and the Thank You Swami team and the Sri Sathya Sai organization of Trinidad and Tobago, Sri Sathya Sai International Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, for this wonderful, warm welcome. I really, in the last 24 hours since I've been here, I felt like I've only come home and not visiting some foreign place. So thank you so much for making me feel this way, and I'm so grateful to Brother Vishaal in particular for initiating this trip and inviting me here so lovingly. Out of the many things in this world, there is one topic that if I start talking about it, I can never stop, and that is Sai Bhajans. This is something that is the most dear to my heart personally. I've grown up listening and singing Sai Bhajans, and this is one of Swami's greatest gifts to mankind. And so a simple title for today's workshop, I wanted to call it Bhajan, a way of life. So why conduct this workshop? So before me, one of my best friends, Brother Siddharth Sai Shivakumar, who plays harmonium and is a wonderful singer and also composes many bhajans along with me, was here 2 years ago, and he conducted a similar workshop. And so I hope that I am not repetitive, and I would like this to be a continuation of where Brother Sid had left off. But just to center ourselves and our intentions for this evening, why conduct a bhajan workshop? Bhajans, as I mentioned, are a part of our lives as Sai devotees. Many people around the world who were never familiar with Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, many of them have come to the Shri Sathya Sai International Organization, have come into Swami's fold through the medium of Sai Bhajans. They listen to bhajans and they wonder, what is this? What is this beautiful music that is emanating? And then they come, this is the gateway to Swami, this avenue of Sai Bhajans. And I feel that when I am singing bhajans, I am my truest and purest self when I'm singing bhajans in that state of mind. And of course, as I mentioned, Sai Bhajans is a wonderful opportunity for the community to come together, especially during such divisive times. During bhajans, of course, there is no talking. There should be no talking during bhajans. There's no discussion. It is pure immersion in the divine bliss and in the glory of Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. So one may wonder, why should we gather every week at the Chaguanas Sai Center for Sai Bhajans? Why can't I just sit at home in my altar room and sing bhajans to Swami? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in one of his hadiths, his commandments to the followers of Islam, stated that the Friday Jummah prayer that is conducted must be done in congregation. Muslims are obligated to perform the Friday late morning prayer, known as the Jummah prayer, in congregation. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that every additional member added onto this congregation increases the merit of doing that prayer 27 times. One person multiplies the merits by 27 times. So imagine when we come together at the Sai Center to sing bhajans, when we have 100, 150 people coming together to sing the glory of our beloved Lord. Imagine how much more vibration and how much more blessing from Swami we are receiving when we are doing bhajans together versus doing bhajans alone in our private altars. That said, doing bhajans together in public has a specific sadhana and a specific discipline that must be followed prior to doing bhajans in the center. Bhajans, not just the bhajan, but the preparation to sing bhajans at the Sai Center is a sadhana, is a spiritual practice. And so whatever I will mention in this workshop, let me make it clear, this does not refer to having bhajans privately in your homes. This refers to the practices, best practices that should be followed for bhajans conducted at Sai Centers. How do we create our bhajan sessions to be more conducive to giving devotees that celestial experience that Sai Bhajans are known around the world for? Just look at how much bhajans unites us. I live in New Jersey, USA. This is the first time I'm visiting Trinidad, and I know exactly what bhajans you're singing. If I go to Switzerland, if I go to Netherlands, if you go to any country, any Sai Center around the world, in the 120 countries where the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization exists, if you go to any Sai Center, you will know all of the bhajans. So just imagine, you don't even know the people, but you know what bhajans are being sung there. I'll narrate a little funny incident here. One time I was shopping at the Indian grocery store, and there was a Sai young adult who approached me. For heaven's sake, I could not remember what her name was. She approached me and said, Sai brother Rushi, how are you doing? And I gave her this very awkward look, saying like, Sai just trying to hide the fact I couldn't remember her name. And she was like, do you not remember my name? She figured it out and that I couldn't remember, I couldn't recall. She's like, do you not know my name? And I'm like, sister, I don't know your name, but I know in Global Akhanda Bhajans 2017, in the closing slot, you sang Sai Ram Ghanashyam, and she was kind of shell-shocked, and we had a laughing moment there. Of course, she revealed her name, and all was good. But that's how much Sai Bhajans connect us. We may not remember people by their names, but we can remember them by the bhajans that they have sang. And so this workshop, I would like to keep it very interactive. I'm not here to proselytize or give a talk. Please, I beg you, interject with questions or comments, suggestions during this workshop. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not a guest here. I'm one of you. We're all family. We're all united in Swami's love. So please, and on that note, if I say anything offensive by accident, please forgive me. I am merely, for all the elders, I'm just your child. So I hope we move forward into this workshop with that understanding. So one of the things that strikes me about bhajans, Sai Bhajans in particular, in that it is a unique genre of music. We have jazz, rock, soca in Trinidad, chutney music. We have Bollywood, blues, so many different genres of music. But if we really study the technicalities of bhajans, Sai Bhajans in particular, are truly their own genres of music, to the point where PhD dissertations have been written on Sai Bhajans. The other beauty of Sai Bhajans is they encompass all different other genres of music. For example, if you want to have a jazzy bhajan, Nandalala, Shama Sundara Nandalala. If you like more Carnatic classical music, Samba Sada Shiva Ishwara. If you like more Hindustani classical music, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om, Narayana. So there are so many different genres of music encompassed within this genre of Sai Bhajans. If you think about it, I personally am not aware of any other genre of music in the entire world that exists in which every single word, every single note, every single line is repeated by the entire congregation. We have Sikh Gurbani Kirtans in which typically just the initial stanza, like the Mukhada, will be repeated and sung in unison by the whole congregation. But then the subsequent stanzas are sung solely by the lead singer. The same holds true with gospel singing in churches. Sai Bhajans is the only genre of music in where there is this format of lead, follow, lead, follow. And so even if you're not musically inclined or are not trained in music or feel that you are not confident enough to perhaps lead a bhajan, you can at least participate by following and by clapping. Even if you don't know how to play an instrument, Swami has said that the most important instrument in a bhajan session is clapping. And so when all of us come together and we sing in a myriad of voices joined together to sing the glory of Bhagawan, it creates, as I mentioned, increased vibration. It's not addition, but it's exponential multiplication of the vibrations when we sing in person, when we sing together. And especially now, with Swami's grace, as the COVID pandemic continues to subside, we will now have more opportunities to meet in person and sing bhajans together. And so what are the elements that make up a bhajan session at the Sai Center? First and foremost, it is God, Bhagavan Shri Satya Sai Baba, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when we chant 3 Oms at the beginning of the session, as you all may already be aware, at the first Om, Swami becomes aware that we are calling him. At the second Om, he is already coming towards us. And at the third Om, he is truly seated here on the throne amongst the congregation. And so whatever form that we contemplate upon, he installed, Swami, yat mad bhakta yatra gayanti, tatra tishtami Narada. Lord Vishnu tells Narada in the Bhagavad Purana that not only that he comes where his glory is being sung, he installs himself permanently wherever the glory of God is sung. And of course, the only thing greater than God is the devotee. So the next element, the devotee, between the devotees in a bhajan session, as you all know, we have three categories: lead singers, chorus singers, and the instrumentalists. These three groups have their own individual sadhana that must be observed prior to attending a bhajan session. When we are having, for example, one may ask, why should we have this sadhana? Why can't I just show up to a bhajan session and sing? Let us take, for example, our Catholic brothers and sisters. Catholics attend church and they receive Holy Communion. And it is mandated that prior to participating in the Mass, prior to receiving Holy Communion, that Christians must fast for at least, it depends on the denomination, but typically they say anywhere from 30 minutes all the way up to 3 hours, that they should not partake any food or water, so that their minds and bodies are purified and they are ready to receive the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Similarly, though we may not be receiving communion during bhajans, we are experiencing communion with Swami. And so if Christians can undertake such rigorous sadhana prior to receiving communion, we also should have some discipline and undergo some sadhana prior to experiencing communion with Swami through the medium of bhajans. And so, of these three categories of devotees, I think I already gave away the answer, but let me ask all of you. Of the three categories of devotees in a bhajan session, which is most important? Any answers? Sorry? Very good. Do others agree? Yes. That is essentially true. The chorus are the most important elements of a bhajan session. Not to undermine the importance of the lead singer, they too have to undergo vigorous, much more vigorous sadhana to be ready for a bhajan session. But look at the importance of chorus singers. In a bhajan session, you may have 1 or 2 lead singers, but in Sai Kulbanthal, you have thousands of chorus singers. In 2019, I had the opportunity to lead bhajans in Sai Kulbanthal. Actually, there's a backstory behind it. 2016, we had the World Young Adults Festival in Prashanti, and I had the opportunity to be one of the MCs for the opening ceremony, and I was also part of the bhajan group. And so on the first day, I didn't lead any bhajans as I was busy with the MCing. And on the second day morning, I had the opportunity to sing Love is My Form True in Sai Kulbanthal. Now on the second day evening, the festival was for 3 days. On the evening of the second day, I was supposed to sing Namami Brahma, Namami Vishnu, Namami Maheshwara with my dear best friend, Brother Sai Santosh Srinivasan, who plays tabla, and himself, myself, and Brother Siddharth, the three of us have our own little group. We like to, organize lots of bhajan initiatives. And so him and I were supposed to sing this bhajan together, and I think it was slotted as the 4th bhajan in the session. After the 3rd bhajan, the priest came and gave arati, no bhajan chants. The same thing happened for both sessions on the 3rd day, morning and evening. We were supposed to, the bhajan was slotted as the 4th or 5th bhajan in either session, and so we didn't get the opportunity to sing because the priest would come right before that bhajan came and the session was closed. And so we lost 3 chances to sing that year because of those time constraints. Fast forward to 2019, by then with Swami's grace, I had been appointed the co-lead of the International Sai Young Adults Ocean of Music Subcommittee, which was responsible for taking care of all the international young adult music initiatives and also organizing the international young adults music offerings in Sai Kulbanthal. And so the day before Guru Purnima, we have the Sri Sathya Sai International Leadership Program graduation ceremony in Kulbanthal, along with which we had an international music program, followed by bhajans by the Sai young adults. And so in that session, I was organizing that bhajan session, and I, myself and another brother from the from the Middle East were singing, we're supposed to sing this one bhajan, Vahe Guru, Vahe Guru, Vahe Guru Ji Bolo. And it was supposed to be the second to last bhajan in the session. And so, as the bhajan session was concluding, we were on the last bhajan of the list. The priest had still not come out to give arti this time. Total opposite problem. And suddenly, the students came with giant piles of safari cloth for the brothers and saris for the sisters. They offered them at Swami's divine lotus feet and then started distributing. And as is the practice in Kulbanthal, while any kind of distribution is going on, bhajans are continued. And so the brothers, we started scrambling, and we, while one bhajan was being sung, I gathered all the boys and we came up with additional bhajans. In that process, as Swami would have willed, I got to sing 3 bhajans in that one session. I sang Vaheguru, then I sang Hari Narayana, Hari Narayana, and then I got to sing Sai Nama Bolo. And while we were singing Sai Nama Bolo, the priest had come out, Arati was offered. So can you imagine how much Swami cares for us when we have pure intention to sing His glory? He does not leave a single stone unturned. In 2016, I missed 3 chances to sing. In 2019, Bhagawan's delays are never His denials. Exactly 3 years later, I was seated in the same spot singing those 3 bhajans. And I tell you, yes, Sai Kulbanthal may not have the best sound system, but the chorus that you get sitting in Sai Kulbanthal is unparalleled. The objective of me saying this is, Sai Kulbanthal should not be limited to a remote village in South India. We need to recreate Prashanti Nilayam. Prashanti Nilayam, where Swami resides, the abode of supreme peace, is in our hearts. It is truly in our hearts. This Trinidad and Tobago is Prashanti. We need to bring Sai Kulbanthal and that same vibration to every single Sai center. Of course, we may not have 20,000 people sitting in the congregation, but we have the power within us to create that same energy. And so, chorus is one of the most important parts of a bhajan session. I don't know the exact reference to this. It was mentioned privately in an interview to the bhajan singers. Swami actually mentioned that it was somewhat offensive actually to meditate during a bhajan session. When we attend a communal bhajan, it is our obligation to provide our seva to that session by singing, clapping. When we, of course, Narayan seva and all these sevas that we do, medical seva, Narayan seva, they're all very important sevas. It's one of the wings of our organization. But bhajan singing itself is one very, very important seva. When we do this exercise of the Akhanda Bhajan every November and during every Shivratri, we say that, the vibrations that we are producing are going all around the world. And I think phrases like that are just kind of thrown around. We don't really understand the depth of statements like that. Right now, as I'm speaking, if we were in vacuum, in space, sound does not exist in space. Sound is actually a physical vibration that we do not see. It is invisible. So when I speak, the atoms of hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen in front of my mouth move physically into this microphone that creates a channel of atoms that hits the speakers. From the speakers, again, the physical atoms of air are physically moving and vibrating, hitting your eardrums, and your eardrum vibrates, which is then translated by your brain as sound. And so that physical movement of atoms, though we are creating it here and it may only be audible within the 4 walls of this hall, that physical vibration does actually transmute through the ground, through all our surroundings. And so when we sing bhajans, we should be aware that we are actually filling the vibrations of the universe, of the metaverse, whatever you want to call it. We are filling the universe with these very powerful and sacred vibrations. Of course, the follower has some duties. We should maintain unity. The followers should sing full-throated and energy. And that is maintained through vigorous clapping. Here we see Swami beautifully clapping during a bhajan workshop, he's leading a bhajan in the Purnachandra auditorium. And no better example than Swami himself. When singing, he's clapping. And so, When we clap, though it may seem like a mundane activity, in Ayurveda, they say we have many pressure points in our hands, right? And every pressure point on the hand relates to a particular part of our bodies. And so, yes, in Ayurveda, they would suggest, if you have some problem with your heart, then you would press a certain part of your hand. If you have a problem with your eyesight, you would press a specific part of your hand. And, they give this practice to patients. But when we clap, we are literally pressing together every single pressure point on our hands, and we are healing our own bodies. And another important thing is that when we clap, outside there are birds on a tree making noise. When we clap, all the birds fly away. Our minds are nothing but like a tree. And these birds are the annoying thoughts that are disturbing us. And when we clap, all of those annoying, disturbing thoughts fly away. And of course, we have the main element of the bhajan session, of course, is the lead singer. If we think of how a city's plumbing system works, you have a main reservoir and then you have a main pipe that brings water to all the individual homes. The lead singer is like that main pipe that comes straight from the reservoir. And so that pipe must be maintained clean. Swami is the reservoir. The divine love is flowing through the lead singer to the entire congregation. And if there's contamination in that pipe, the clean water, the love of Swami will not reach the congregation. And so the lead singer must undergo some sadhanas. There are 3 elements to this: bhava, raga, and tala. You put these words together, it makes the word Bharat or Bharata. One may associate Bharat with India, but in the true sense, see this bhava, raga, tala, it also means Bharata. Bha stands for Bhagawan or God. And rati, the word rati in Sanskrit means closeness. So Bharatiya is one who is always close to God. So we should not constrict this word Bharat to India, in the geographical sense. Bharatiya is anyone who is close to God. So we should all strive to become Bharatiyas. And when we undertake this practice of bhava, raga, tala, we are sure to progress along that path. And so bhava is the feeling, raga the melody, tala the rhythm. Foremost is bhava. And maintaining bhava in a bhajan session by the lead singer is very important. But that lead singer also has a very important responsibility for the congregation. Because if the lead singer is focusing on their bhava and they're letting raga and tala fall to the side, what is going to happen? The raga and tala quality of the bhajan will come down, and that will impact the bhava feelings of the entire congregation. Sure. So as bhava means the feeling or the emotion that we should have when we're singing to Swami. Right? When we should understand what the bhajans mean. I'll just skip ahead. As Sid might have already mentioned, a bhajan should be practiced 100 times before it is rendered in the Sai Center. This seems like a very Herculean, impossible task. But if you think about it, it's actually not that bad. Singing a bhajan once takes, on average, taking into account the occasional 3rd or 4th speed, the average Sai Bhajan is about 3 minutes and 45 seconds long. And so, to sing a bhajan 16 times will only take you 1 hour. If you do that for 6 days in a row, you'll be well beyond those 100 times of singing. So if you do that for 6 days, on the 7th day you come to the Sai Center and sing. What is the beauty of practicing each bhajan 100 times? The first 25 times you practice the bhajan, you familiarize yourself with the pronunciation and the musical elements, the tune, the beat of the bhajan. Going into this a little bit, every bhajan has an innate default speed that it should be sung at. For example, if you have a bhajan like Guru Baba, right? Guru Baba, it sounds nice when it's sung fast. But if the same bhajan, if you take it and sing it slow, Guru Baba, Sharanam Stuti Guru Baba. for an unplugged cover, it might sound nice. For a Sai Bhajan session, you lose that energy. On this flip side, if you have other bhajans like Sai Ram, Sai Sham, Mere Sai Ram. If you take that same bhajan and sing it fast, Sai Ram, Sai Sham, Mere, it loses the beauty of that bhajan. So, in terms of the tala, we should stick to that default speed of that bhajan. Very important for the lead singer to be aware of that. And then the raga, of course, perhaps, singing what scale that bhajan is sung in. Again, I'll take like Om Shivaya for an example. Om Shivaya, Om Shivaya, Shambho Shankara, Om Shivaya. A bhajan like that sounds better when it's sung in a higher scale. Doing it in a lower scale, Om Shivaya, Om Shivaya. Of course, within the physical limitations of your voice. Of course, right now I'm just recovering from a little bit of voice difficulty. So, we should be self-aware of the bhajans we choose. And so, right, like I said, the first 25 times, you familiarize yourself with the musical aspects of the bhajan. The next 25 times, from 26 to 50, you begin to familiarize yourself with the bhava, the feeling of the bhajan. As you continue singing the bhajan, you read the translation that's provided in Vrindamritam or Sai Rhythms, any bhajan reference, and you start internalizing what this bhajan really means. SaiRhythms.org is a wonderful resource. If you go search any bhajan, not only does it give you the en bloc translation of the bhajan, at the bottom it gives you the individual breakdown of what every single word in that bhajan means. It's a wonderful resource that I urge everyone to use if you have difficulty understanding what some particular words in a bhajan mean. So that second set of 25 times, begin to understand the meaning of the bhajan. And that covers Bharata. Why are we practicing the bhajan another 50 times? That third set of 25 times, you begin to lose yourself in that bhajan. You become one with that bhajan that you're singing. And then the last set of 25 times, Swami, who has been listening to you practice this bhajan, starts losing himself in your bhajan. And finally, the 101st time when you come to center on the 7th day and you sing this bhajan in the congregation, anyone who listens to that bhajan, because you have practiced it with so much love and devotion and sadhana, anyone who listens to that bhajan will lose themselves in the divine bliss of Bhagavan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. But how do we really practice bhajans? What is the right way to do this? One of the important techniques which is given by Swami to the Prashanti Bhajan group is chanting Om early in the morning. In Prashanti, that is done every single day. Om is chanted 21 times. The human voice is like a slingshot. The lower the voice is pulled in the morning, the higher your range. Of course, your lower range will improve, but your high range will also improve. So one of the most important practices even for chorus singers or bhajan singers, lead singers, is to do bass practice. And so you pick any note. We all have smartphones these days. You can either, search a Tanpura app, download it, or even YouTube has tons of videos. You can just search Tanpura A sharp, Tanpura C sharp. Pick any note, even if you're not familiar with how a harmonium or keyboard works. Pick any random note, right? And just chant Om on it. Om. And then progressively, even if you don't know the notes, start going down to the farthest limit of your voice. Om, 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 Om. Of course, I'm doing this a little fast. It should be done slow with the full capacity of your lungs, and for as long as you can. Om, 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 Om. You do not need to be a musician or a singer to understand this. Just pick, you can even pull it up on YouTube, right? Pull up any Tanpura audio and just listen to it for 2 seconds and sing on that pitch. ideally this should be done early in the morning, or at least while you wake up. Right now I have a 1-hour commute to where I work every day while I drive. I try to do this practice while I'm driving. I like to time my day by Sai Bhajans. So like if it's 1-hour drive, I say, it'll take me 15 bhajans to reach my destination. Showering is equivalent to 1 or 2 Sai Bhajans. Brushing my teeth is equivalent to 1 bhajan. So like this, we can include bhajans in our daily lives and continue, singing Swami's name and glory. So doing this kind of practice, the base practice, is very important. In addition to doing this base practice is breathing exercises. Of course, that comes even before the base practice, because, I like to say that Sai Bhajans is like a work of art. The canvas is silence, and the paint is your voice. You're painting the silence with the colors of your voice, and that is the beauty of Sai Bhajans. But what is the paint brush? The paint brush is your breath. And so breath control in bhajans is very important. One of the important breathing exercises that my vocal teacher taught me, my vocal guru, was you breathe in once, and then you release your breath slowly in steps. So you breathe in, and then you hold your breath for 4 counts, release it slowly for 4 counts, hold it again for 4 counts, completely release it, and then again just stay breathless for 4 counts, and again repeat the cycle. So doing this kind of breathing exercise as slow as physically possible will help us improve our voices. And so doing the breathing exercise, doing that kind of base practice will help us to become better bhajan singers and maintain, that pitch really, really well. Then of course is bhava, and there are many techniques to how we can maintain bhava in a bhajan session. But let me say one blanket statement here. When the raga, tala, and the lyrics of the bhajan are first sorted in your mind, only then it will become easy to focus on Sai Bhajans. That's really the beauty of bhajans. The way bhajans are composed, Sai Bhajans in particular, is they're mostly within 4 to 8 lines long. In psychology, I'm not a psychology student, but I've taken 1 or 2 classes, and they say that trying to remember information in small chunks is easier than remembering it together. And so if I were to tell you a set of numbers, right, for example, a phone number, 201-653-8609, will you be able to remember that 9, 10 digits? Probably not. But if I break it into small chunks, 201-653-8609, you are able to remember that much easier than trying to remember that whole string of numbers. Similarly, Sai Bhajans themselves are small bits of information that it's easy for our brains to remember them. Ideally, when we have organized bhajans, the lyrics are projected on the screen, because the chorus singers who come, because the chorus singers are the most important in a congregation of bhajan, because if the chorus singer doesn't know the bhajan, they can see the lyrics on the screen, they can follow along. But the lead singer should not be looking at the screen. The lead singer should have the bhajan memorized. Bhajans are short enough, and I'm sure by the time you practice a bhajan 100 times, as we should be doing prior to singing it in the center, ideally, of course, I don't mean to intimidate anybody, we should all, bhajan is, as I like to say, there is a Sai Bhajan for every single person in the world. Saying that, oh, I feel scared to sing, or I don't have the vocal stamina to sing more difficult bhajans, or I don't have the vocal stamina to sing at all, is that argument just does not have grounding in my personal opinion. Because Sai Bhajan, as I mentioned, are so diverse in their genres of music that are encompassed within this one genre, that there is a Sai Bhajan for every single person. There are bhajans, actually let's break this monotony by singing a bhajan together. This is a very simple bhajan that was composed by, I don't actually remember who composed it. It might have been Raja Reddy, but this was composed back in the 1960s. The Prashant Nilayam was inaugurated in 1950, it was a very humble abode of Swami, and this practice of communal bhajan started. And so they were singing these really beautiful and simple bhajans that, unfortunately are not too popular anymore, and we should go back and re-energize and resurrect these vintage bhajans. But, this bhajan is so simple, you don't even need the lyrics to follow along. And I request everyone to follow along and clap. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Radha, Krishna, Radha. Radha, Krishna, Radha. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Radha, Krishna, Radha. Radha, Krishna, Radha. Radha, 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 Krishna, Radha. Such simple bhajans exist that there is truly a Sai Bhajan for everyone. And of course, with proper practice, everyone will be able to sing. That is the crux of Sai Bhajan. That's what creates that celestial experience within the congregation. Everyone coming together and singing. But of course, having that sadhana to pick the right bhajan, to pick simple bhajans if you're don't have the vocal stamina, to pick tougher bhajans. Yes.
So I get what you're saying, but what if there are some people who struggle with, so you might have the raga, you might get the correct pitch, but then there are people who struggle with keeping a beat. How does one train oneself for timing, especially in Sai Bhajans, because that's integral for the chorus to come in, and then it kind of messes up if everything goes askew. How does that fix itself?
Very good question, and there's a very good solution for that as well. This is recommended for percussionists, but also for singers. While practicing with the tanpura or shruti box that you find, you can also practice with something called a metronome, and that delivers a constant, electronically determined, constant beat. Ta, ta. You can find it on YouTube. Just Google metronome, and you get like 100 BPM, 100 beats per minute, 120 BPM, and sing along to a metronome. It doesn't even have to be with tune. So I have an app on my phone, iTabla Pro, and that has like a built-in metronome function. Let me try to pull it up. Metronome, here we go. Practice along to something like, it doesn't even have to be singing. You could just chant Om Shri Sai Ram to this beat. Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. And of course, I strongly believe that humans have the innate musical capacity. Every human being is blessed with the innate musical capacity to know if they're going off on the wrong path. So if you start going off the beat, I guarantee you yourself will realize that, oh my God, something is wrong. And so having this kind of practice, using the electronic mechanism, metronome, as a crutch, for lack of a better term, is a great way to strengthen our grounding in rhythm, in tala. This is tabla players, as when they start out, and even now, when I'm practicing some drills, I always practice, initially to a metronome, because it helps. It really helps with, maintaining that beat sense. End of the day, when I play tabla, for example, I try to imagine that my heart is like that metronome. And so I really try to feel that beat. And even when we're singing as well, try to really feel that beat thumping inside of you. And doing this kind of practice will definitely help people stay on beat. I hope that answered your question, brother. So having, those kinds of tips and doing that kind of practice will help us stay on beat. And again, picking the right bhajan is very important. Just like I gave this tip of, using metronome to practice, or just getting that beat sense going. We all have smartphones these days. One of the best ways is to know if you're on the right path of singing. Simply record yourself singing. And hear your recording back to yourself. I guarantee you the innate human musical ability, that innate human musical instinct will guide you if this is in line or if it's not in line. And I apologize, as this is a very touchy and a sensitive subject, but when we sing bhajans at home, it is okay to experiment. It is okay to sing whatever bhajan comes to your heart. You might listen to, I've made this mistake. I was listening to Bridge Across Time in 2011 when Swami took Samadhi. Right after that, it was a very tough time, for all of us. And that's when I really became so passionate about bhajans, because I felt that while I was listening to bhajans or singing bhajans, I was truly able to feel Swami's presence. And so during that phase, one of the bhajans I picked up was I'll just sing through the first beat. It's such a beautiful bhajan. Sundara Padam Sai Padam Sundara Padam Sai Padam Pankaja Charanam Papa Vimochanam Nataraja Natanam Sai Padam Nataraja Natanam Sai Padam Shri Krishna Nartanam Sai Padam Shri Krishna Nartanam Sai Padam Bhava Dukha Haranam Sai Padam Jagadodharanam Sai Padam Jagadodharanam Sai Padam Jagadodharanam Sai Padam Sundara Padam Sai Padam. So I heard this bhajan, and just 1 week after Swami had taken Samadhi, in New Jersey, a big program was organized. It was a public function where, devotees from all over and even non-devotees were invited to attend. And I had just learned this bhajan maybe a day or two prior to this function. And so when I showed up, they said, we'll be ending the program with a couple bhajans. Would you like to sing? So I said, I'll sing this bhajan. I had not done my sadhana of practicing it 100 times. But I just felt so good, and this bhajan gave me such nice, warm, fuzzy feelings, because when I heard it for the first time, I could imagine Sundara Padam, Sai Padam, Swami's feet are so beautiful. And I don't know, when I was contemplating on this bhajan, the visualization that I had in my mind was that I am sitting, on the floor. Swami is sitting on a chair right in front of me, and that his feet are resting in my lap. That is a visualization that I could feel within my heart when I heard this bhajan. So I felt so good about it. And so when I went to this program, I was asked, what bhajan would you like to do? I gave this bhajan. I'd only heard it 2 days earlier. I maybe sang it once or twice in the car. I kid you not, the harmonium player gives me the pitch. And I sang the first line. Sundara Padam, Sai Padam. Chorus happened, I sang the line a second time. Sundara Padam, Sai Padam. They did chorus, and for heaven's sake, I could not remember what the second line was. I ended up singing that first line 4 times. Until somebody had to nudge me in my ear, you know what, the next line. In my ear, they had to tell me, then I'm like, oh, okay. Then I was able to finish the bhajan. That's the importance of practice before going into a bhajan session. And picking the right bhajan for yourself, right? So if you hear these like very complicated bhajans, and you know, I've served in the capacity of a devotion coordinator of a center. And so many times I'll get devotees who say like, you know, I felt so good about this bhajan. I really, you know, this bhajan made me feel so connected to Swami. But that is your personal connection. When you are singing in a center, it's not just about you. It's about the entire congregation, because you are doing a service to everyone. So when we come to a center and sing bhajans, we should sing bhajans that are, you know, you can deliver. Whenever I've sent out a bhajan sign-up sheet, I'll set up like a Google form and I'll send it out to all the center members. And on that, on the front page of the Google form, I write a line. Sairam, bhajan singing is a service that you are doing for the entire congregation. Please select bhajans that you can render to the best of your musical ability. Because when we come to the center, it's not about pomp and show. It's not because there are more people here that I should be singing better. That's not the attitude that we should have. It's not about because more people, bhajan has to be better. No. It's because you now become responsible. With great power comes great, thank you. With great power comes great responsibility. And so when you come to a bhajan session, when a microphone is placed in front of your mouth, when the power of the microphone is in front of your mouth, use it humbly, use it to the best of your capability, so that everyone in the congregation is able to connect to Swami. And so many times I would get, singers who are not so experienced. They would come, hey, I heard, Mahadeva Maheshwara. I practiced the bhajan many times and I want to sing it. And they would come to the bhajan practice session, and I kid you not, it would be completely out of tune and out of beat, and they would not be able to sustain, and they would argue saying, like, no, I really practice this bhajan, I really want to sing. And so when we have, bhajan organizers like Brother Vishaal, Sister Tanu, you have experienced people like Brother Trevor. Utilize these young adults as much as you can. Take their guide. You should have the humility to take their guidance. And really, if they suggest that maybe, hey, this bhajan may not be suited for this session, maybe select a different one. We should have, because they are in the mind, they are not thinking about, it's not a personal attack or a personal thing against anybody. When bhajan organizers, when a bhajan organizer is asking you to, hey, maybe select a different bhajan, they are doing that in the best interest of the congregation. If you have some ill feelings towards them, maybe those feelings are just a reflection of the hangama that's happening inside your own mind and brain. Let's try to put that aside, right? When we come to a bhajan session, the devotion coordinator or the bhajan organizers, it is their responsibility that you do not become the laughing stock of the center. So when we come to a bhajan session, and again, I know this is a very sensitive topic, and I humbly apologize, but I'm just saying this as your own brother, as your own child, that let us have that spiritual humility to pick the right bhajan. And I guarantee you, even before you get to the center and you submit your bhajan, listen to yourself singing. That innate musical instinct that every human being has will tell you if this is the right bhajan for you or not. And so when we come to center and we just pass around the mic and sing, while it's great, ideally we should have an organized bhajan session, right? When we have the lyrics shown on the screen, That's when the congregation can sing. You see, why do we do bhajans in two speeds, right? We have this universal format of Sai Bhajans in all 120 countries of our organization. Why do we do bhajans in two speeds? Does anybody know why? Why has Swami installed this particular format of bhajan singing? Let's say you come to a bhajan session and you don't know the bhajan. For example, right now I just sang Sundarapadam. You may or may not know that bhajan. In the first speed, because that line is repeated 2 times, you can start learning the bhajan, so that by the second speed, at least you can look at the screen, listen to the lyric, the tune of the bhajan, and follow along. By the time we get to that second speed, there should be no silent voice within the congregation. The Swami has so geniusly created this format. See, Swami has so many service projects, hospitals, schools, water projects, Grama Seva, so many world-class institutions that Bhagawan has created. But I think we tend to forget that Sai Bhajans, as its independent, imagine one person single-handedly started, yes, all these hospitals, everything is great. This one, forget for one instant that Bhagawan Shri Sathya Sai Baba is God in human form. As one human being born in southern India, he started a genre of music that is now spread to over 120 countries through the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization and all of his devotees. So now that Swami is not in his physical form, we become the emissaries, we become the torchbearers of the genre of music that Swami himself institutionalized. So when we come to center bhajan, why should the bhajan session be organized? Why should we have a list? Why should there be bhajan practice? There should be bhajan practice so that at least when you're singing a bhajan and you want to introduce a slightly unfamiliar bhajan to the congregation, then at least a critical mass of people know that bhajan and they're able to give you chorus in a successful manner, right? Right now, not to put you guys on the spot, right? But had we practiced Sundarapadam earlier, I'm sure that bhajan would have been a lot more effective. When we sing bhajans together, it is very important that the session be organized so that the lyrics are on the screen for the entire congregation to follow along. Again, not for the lead singer. The lead singer should have memorized the bhajan, right? Because I'll tell you, right, when we're singing, for example, in a music offering, you have long songs that are being sung, devotional songs, and you're looking at the lyrics of the program and of all the songs, and I guarantee you, though the human mind has the capacity of like millions of computers, I'm sure all of your attention is just on those lyrics. So when we say, oh right, I want to have bhava in a bhajan session, I want to keep that bhava while I'm singing, if you're so attached to that, if you're using that screen as a crutch, then you won't be able to focus on the bhava in the first place. So memorizing the bhajan for the lead singer, becoming confident in that bhajan is the key to having a successful bhajan, right? And in addition to listening to yourself singing, recording yourself and listening to your voice, another very key aspect is if you haven't had the bhajan memorized, then you're probably not ready to sing it in the session, in the center session. So memorize the bhajan, have the lyrics projected for the entire congregation to sing along, and so that you have that group practice that is maintained. And of course, I've been talking about how do we perfect, the bhajan as its individual unit. One bhajan, how do we perfect it? We do the sadhana, we do the rhythm practice, singing practice, but as a cohesive session, how do we make a bhajan session work? So if we just had open bhajans, sure, somebody starts with a Ganesh bhajan, right? Vinayaka, Vinayaka. Then somebody sings a fast bhajan after that, right? Like Guru Baba, Guru Baba. And then somebody sings Ram Raghuvar Ram Sita Ram 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 Vadamali Vasudeva Jagan Mohan Radha Ramana Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. By the 5th or 6th bhajan, the tabla players are going to tire out. On the same token, if you do a bhajan session, and again, these are the gaps that open up when a bhajan session is not planned, right? Because you come having practiced some bhajan, so when the mic gets in front of you, you are going to sing that bhajan. You are not going to see, okay, the bhajan before me was slow, so let me sing a faster bhajan. All of this, you may not be able to accommodate if the bhajan session is not planned. On the same token, Shiva Nandana Jaya Jagavandana Mahadeva Maheshwara Sai Narayana. Koi bole Hari Hari, koi bole Ram Ram, Patishwar Shri Sai Prabhu Allah Ishwar Ek Hi Naam. By the 5th or 6th bhajan, if all the slow bhajans are being sung, congregation will nicely have good experience of yoga nidra, sleep. So how do we organize bhajans? Yes, while this is the responsibility of the bhajan organizer to do this, we should all be aware of how a bhajan, yes, so far we have been talking about that unit. How is that unit, one bhajan, perfected? How do we do this as one session, right? Typically we have bhajans for 1 hour. How many bhajans can we accommodate in one session? 15, 16. Of course, this is, we're about to have Mahashivratri Akhanda Bhajan. That's a totally different ball game. This, what I'm about to talk to, refers to a regular 1 hour bhajan session. Speaking of time, how are we doing on time? Okay, sure. Within one bhajan session, you have 15 bhajans. If you notice, most of the Ganesh bhajans today, Trevor beautifully sang, Jaya Lambodara Pahimam. Of all the Ganesh bhajans in our repertoire, you will notice that 90% of all the Ganesh bhajans are composed, as I remember I mentioned, sticking to the default or innate speed of that bhajan, right? 90% of all Ganesh bhajans, I guarantee you, are composed in an upbeat, medium to fast speed. Yes, there are some slow Ganesh bhajans like Gananath Sai Bhajan, but most of the Ganesh bhajans are fast. Why is that? Because we want to start the bhajan session with a punch. Somebody may have come from work, it's a Sunday morning, somebody might be tired, people are bringing all their miseries of the world into the bhajan session. They're coming, they're sitting, 3 Om start, but as soon as the Ganesh bhajan picks up with fast energy and everyone's clapping, right? All those thoughts, all the bad vibrations are gone because you start the session with a punch, with a very energetic Ganesh bhajan. Now that you have everybody's attention, you can feed the slower bhajans. Sai Ram, Sai Sham. All the slower bhajans can then come. But then again, if we keep singing slow bhajans, then by the end of the session again, yoga nidra, everybody's asleep. So we introduce some 2-3 slow bhajans. After that, we start building up the crescendo. The speed increases slowly. And so that bhajan session makes the energy and the speed is like a check mark. You start fast, get everyone's attention, then you feed the slower bhajans, and then you slowly increase. Right? It's just like how a meal works, right? If you have a 4-course meal, the appetizer will be something very exciting, like you have samosas or pakoras or palori or aloo pie or something very exciting. Right? You want to excite the people. Then you give the simpler things like soup or salad. And then as you get the entree, you get the soya curry and all the different potato salad and all the different elements of the meal until you reach the crescendo of the dessert. Right? Bhajan is very analogous to bhojan. While bhojan is the food for the body, bhajan is truly the food for the soul. And so it's just like a 4-course meal. You start with the appetizer and you go all the way until the desserts. And the ultimate, if you have a cake, right? What is the cherry or the icing on the top is that 3rd, 4th speed that you get with those last few bhajans, right? So when we create the bhajan session with that cohesiveness, that is the benefit of having organized bhajans at the center versus just passing around the mic. The other thing is, if the bhajans are organized, and today beautifully we had the pitch of the bhajan on the screen, or if the pitch is maybe printed on a list, then if you've practiced the bhajan in advance, you know what scale the bhajan, you know what pitch you should sing the bhajan in. And the harmonium, when it plays between, that prelude before the bhajan, it creates that cohesiveness of every bhajan tying together like a garland that's being offered to Swami. So, if you didn't know the pitch of a bhajan, especially bhajans that have a wider range of notes from low to high, if I was singing like, if I was singing Allahu Akbar, right, and I wasn't really sure where to start, I know I typically sing it somewhere in between B or C sharp, depending on how my voice is acting that day. So if I don't know, and if I start singing Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Yeshu Pita, Prabhu Allahu Akbar, Shirdi Sai Bardi Sai Toma, right, you lose the lower notes completely. But if the bhajan session has been organized and the harmonium player is giving you that correct note. Of course, sometimes I've been in a session, actually it happened with the same bhajan session. The note was C sharp, but they gave me, I think, like F sharp, and the bhajan went for a complete toss. Of course, harmonium player should be attentive in giving the right pitch. But of course, if we have if the pitch has been practiced and the pitch is specified for that bhajan, then if the harmonium player, gives you that pitch, right, and then you're able to sing the bhajan successfully because you will hit it in the right range. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar,
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Yeshu Pita Prabhu Allahu Akbar, Shirdi Sai Parti Sai Toma ho.
Yeshu Pita Prabhu Allahu Akbar, Shirdi Sai Parti Sai Toma ho.
Guru Nanak bhi tum ho,
Guru Nanak bhi tum ho.
Saurashtra Mahavir tum ho,
Saurashtra Mahavir tum ho.
Yeshu Pita Prabhu tum ho,
Yeshu Pita Prabhu tum ho.
Sai Allahu Akbar tum ho,
Sai Allahu Akbar tum ho.
Sai Allahu Akbar tum ho,
Sai Allahu Akbar tum ho.
La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
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 Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah.
Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. See, another mistake that I just made. Being hydrated is very important for bhajans because I've been talking, my voice cracked in the higher notes because I was not fully hydrated. Water, the elixir of life, very, very important to singing. At this point, we sung a couple of bhajans. I wanted to open it up for questions and comments, and if you had any doubts about what I've spoken, again, I apologize if I've come across as insensitive in a way or so, but I hope you take this information in stride and with the understanding that, again, I'm merely your brother, your child, and I've just come to share my heart. I'm being fully vulnerable. I've just come to open my heart and share my passion for bhajans and my love for Swami with all of you. So on that note, questions?
I don't have a question, but more or less a comment and perhaps how we could remedy this, right? So we've gone through what you've said, and I can tell you that maybe 90% of I'm not sugarcoating anything, because the reason we're having the workshop is to probably, learn a little bit more. 90% of, I think, centers in Trinidad don't have organized bhajans. People show up, they sing, they go home, return next week. And I think a big part of that is because devotional coordinators or spiritual coordinators for their centers don't fully understand their role. Now, I personally tried my best to inculcate, and it didn't work because there's a lot of resistance to moving in that direction, especially in Trinidad. I think a lot of people are just comfortable just showing up and offering a bhajan. How can we now try to change the culture? Because it seems as though the culture where you are at and mostly around the world has already had that shift. How can we as a country who is not there yet try to reach there?
This is definitely a very difficult problem to overcome because, as the organization has been around for more than 50 years and we get set in our own ways. But let's see how bhajans really evolved. Right? In Parthi, when Swami started the practice of bhajans, this can be dated, back to when Swami was in his early 20s. Sai Bhajans didn't exist back then. Swami would just sing like Tyagaraja songs, Tyagaraja's Kirtanas, and he would sing these like Telugu and Tamil songs for hours on end, and literally the whole session would be like in that old mandir that Swami had in that tin shed. Devotees would sit around him, he would sing he was the pujari, he was the bhajan singer, he was the bhajan coordinator, he was the public relations officer, and he did everything on his own. And slowly, bhajans began to evolve. Then it became a more congregational thing. One of the bhajans that Swami first started, of course, the mission of Swami started with Manasa Bhajare, but once Swami had institutionalized his small ashram back then, he would sing this one bhajan very often, Rama Bhagawan, Rama Bhagawan, Rama Bhagawan, Sai Rama Bhagawan. And this bhajan would go on for 1 hour. He would do all the different deities. Yesu Bhagavan, then Allah Bhagavan, Zoroaster Bhagavan, all the different deities Swami would just keep including in. That would be the whole session. But then slowly these smaller bhajans started getting invented. And then the bhajans evolved. And even in as of 2008, because there were so many bhajan singers, Swami asked that the students in the Prashanti Bhajan group start singing in pairs so that everyone gets a chance to sing. And really, I personally feel paired singing has so much energy because let's say there are 12 people gathered, 6 brothers and 6 sisters gathered for a bhajan session. And they have to render 12 bhajans. So very easily you could have one person render one bhajan. What I would prefer, group the boys into 3 pairs, 2, 2, 2. Group the girls into 3 pairs, 2, 2, 2. And let each pair sing 2 bhajans. Right? And that's a whole other tangent because 1, that forces people to practice. 2, for those who are more experienced singers, it cuts down all those crazy variations that we want to do, right? And it really focuses us on the unity aspect of the bhajan. So, as bhajans have always constantly evolved, this change in bhajan singing, this dynamic paradigm shift of paired singing was only introduced in Prashanti in 2008. bhajans have been around for decades. And so I think one mindset that we should have as bhajan connoisseurs per se is that we should continue to evolve with the times. Organized bhajans were not PowerPoint slide projectors, did not exist 30, 40 years ago. But today they do exist. Let's use all of this technology and let's use the knowledge to its highest potential so that we can make our bhajan sessions more powerful. So I think just being in the mindset of being with the current times is very important. And of course, who better to bring us into the current times than the young adults? Of course. With all due respect to the seniors, young adults should work hand in hand with the seniors to bring about these changes in the center. And when young adults and seniors come together with the wisdom and the knowledge and the experience of the senior members and the enthusiasm and energy of the young adults, when those two are combined, that truly becomes a very dynamic organization. So, having young adults take the forefront while receiving guidance, approval, and maintaining that strong bond relationship with the seniors is what I think is the key to transforming our bhajan sessions and really bringing our bhajan sessions into the 21st century.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So I have a question that comes to us through our connectedness. So we're actually live streaming right now, as you would know, right? And so I have a question from Ashish Sunday. And he's asking, how do you increase energy and vibrations during a bhajan session when people don't follow or clap in the first or second speeds?
So that should really be the onus lies on the members of the congregation. When we come to a bhajan session, as I mentioned, we have Swami says that he has come not with the duty of love, he has come with the obligation to love. And so when we come to a bhajan session, as there's a beautiful English bhajan. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring new joy to every soul that is alive. May the love we're sharing spread its wings, fly across the earth and bring new joy to everything that is alive. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. And so, it is in giving that we receive the miracle of love is sharing. And so, to create that vibration in a bhajan session, of course, it is the duty of every individual member of the congregation to be aware of these. Again, these are guidelines. These are not hard set rules. There is no law that you have to come and sing and you have to come and clap and sing chorus. These are just guidelines, suggestions that Swami himself has given us, right? So for the mere fact that Swami himself has given us these guidelines, then we should offer that respect to those guidelines and sing. Of course, the responsibility lies on the individual, but then also as organizers, I think we can take many, many steps, which is a whole other session in itself, as to how we create, a conducive environment for that kind of energized singing. But just to touch on a few points, the instrumentation is very crucial. Especially, I'm a percussionist myself. So when I play tabla for a bhajan, I try my best to contour to the individual words of the bhajan. So if I'm just going to play on the side of this harmonium, right? So we just sang Allahu Akbar, and brother beautifully, had those stops. Right? When I play Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, right? And those nice stops creates that oomph and it creates that energy in that session. But it's not wrong if he just played a straight beat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. That's, in no ways it's wrong, it's 100% correct. But it's about having that little bit of awareness, especially on the percussive side, that when we contour to the feel and every individual word of the bhajan, as I like to share with you all my fellow percussionists, bhava can not only be brought out through the singing, but bhava can be brought out through tabla itself. Bhajan, it's like Sai Ram, Sai Shyam, right? Technically, if I played a garba or a traditional, any 6 beat, Sai Ram, Sai Shyam, me, is that technically incorrect? It's not technically incorrect. But if you play Sai Ram, really creates that same vibration. On the same token, if I take that same beat and play it for Jagadishwari Daya Karo, Jagadishwari Daya Karo Ma, it doesn't have that same beat. Jagadishwari Daya Karo Ma, it really gives you that vibration. And so I think percussion is a very, very important in getting that, really riling up the crowd and getting them to clap and sing and energizing the crowd. I have personally noticed when I'm playing tabla and I do a little switch in the beat. So typically as from playing tabla, for bhajans, one time I was playing for this bhajan, Mana ek baar Hari Bol, and the congregation was kind of, lagging and not everybody was singing and clapping. So, towards the end of the last couple lines of the bhajan, Hari Pita Hari, I was playing a straight beat. Mata Hari Guru Jnana Data. I could have kept going with the same beat. Hari Guru Jnana Data. But what I did there, Hari Guru Jnana Data. Chidanandaru. And as soon as I switched the beat, everyone started clapping. It's just that basic human instinct. And so varying the beats in the percussion, of course not to the extent where it becomes a tabla solo, but varying the beats a little bit will really help, bring that crowd and that vibration together and make everyone one clap. That's one important aspect. And again, all of this, as I mentioned, I had the opportunity to do a bhajan workshop just last week with another center in the States. I kept using this term. It's all a positive feedback loop. See, when we have group practice and the bhajans are organized, that gives, of course, the singers an opportunity to practice. It also gives the instrumentalists an opportunity to practice as well. And so they can be prepared with the kinds of beats, the kinds of frills that they want to play on the harmonium. So instrumentalists are key, I think. One of the keys. And of course, having a properly tuned sound system. Brother is doing a fantastic job on the sound today, right? So having a properly equalized sound system, like I said earlier, right? We live in the 21st century. Let's utilize the technology that we are blessed with to make these bhajan sessions more energizing. So having proper sound also, right? If people can't even hear what I'm singing, then the chorus is not going to be able to follow along. If the congregation can't even hear what the tabla is playing, they won't be able to clap. If they can't hear the harmonium, they will go off pitch. So sound, having a proper sound system, and you guys are doing such a fabulous job, that's also very crucial to having a good bhajan session and having that energy, to address that question. Well, of course, there's many, many more things, but won't go into them for courtesy of time. Any other questions?
I just have a follow-up to that one. You did share earlier about the importance of singers being comfortable with keeping a metronome, keeping a beat, right? And while that is important, I'd like to ask from the musician's side, the accompanying musician side, what can harmonium players or percussionists do if a singer goes offbeat?
Good question.
Very good question. I'm almost stumped. I think, speaking from the scientific side of my brain is like preventative action, so that we don't have to do rehabilitation, right? That's why we take vaccines, so that we don't get diseases, right? So having that, doing the preventative action, I think, is the best. But of course, things happen. Even in Parthi, I myself have messed up playing tabla in Sai Kulvantho. Some sisters were singing in that same bhajan session, they were singing Allahu tum, Ishwar bhi tum, and because there was so much commotion happening, there was a photo session going on at the same time, I missed the beat. So I just very briefly stopped, and then I picked up the beat as soon as I could. So, preventative action is the best. But if it does happen, I think it's best to maybe just stop, for not have a long gap, maybe just stop, 1 second, as short of a time as possible, and just quickly recalibrate and restart the accompaniment. I think is the best. I narrated this last week too in the bhajan session that I did. One time there was a brother singing this bhajan, Mahadeva Maheshwara. And so he wasn't really, he was also playing the harmonium. So what he did was like, Mahadeva Mahi. So, trying to know what pitch you're going to sing that bhajan in is very important. That's why we have organized bhajans, so that issues like this don't come up. But I think if they do happen, and of course we're all human beings, and the Swami is the most forgiving Lord that has ever to exist, that's why, we sing to Swami, we chant the Shama Prarthana, and Swami is so forgiving. Swami is so loving. Again, what did I say? These are all guidelines. These are not hard set rules or laws. End of the day, yes, having this raga and tala is important, but Swami he's hungry for our bhava. I would like to narrate one thing that Brother Amay Deshpande from the Prashanti Bhajan group had narrated in one of his talks. Shivratri in Purnachandra Auditorium, one time Swami had given a discourse on the significance of bhajans. And Swami just went on and on about how much bhava is important. When he came down to the bhajan group that was seated in the front row, again, this was from a private conversation. So I've heard this from hearsay. I don't have like an exact reference. So please, take this with a grain of salt, right? Just full disclaimer. But from hearsay, what I heard from somebody else who heard, what Swami said after that discourse when he came down to that small group of bhajan thing, he said that discourse was for everybody, not for you guys. Because it's the lead singer's responsibility to maintain the raga and tala so that the entire congregation can maintain bhava. That bharata is not just about us, it's about the entire congregation coming together and forming that, making all of us Bharatiyas in the true sense, meaning people who are close to God. And as it said, as I started the workshop with that shloka, right? Hari Nama eva kevalam, kalau nasti eva gatiran nasti eva. This is the only way in the Kali Yuga. That is the fastest way to experience unity with Sai. Sorry for going on the tangent. Hope it answers the question though.
Okay, so I think we could probably wrap up the workshop session and head back into the final end of our satsang. Brother Rushi, I could listen to you go on and on about bhajans probably till tomorrow morning, and I still will not have enough information going forward. So just to thank you immensely for coming to Trinidad and offering your knowledge, because there's nothing more we can ask for after this workshop. So I do want to just thank you so much, from the bottom of all of our hearts. And I know we aren't finished. This was the main part of the workshop, but Brother Rushi will be here until Wednesday morning. And tomorrow we are going to the Marabella Sai Center, where it would not be so much of a workshop format, but it would be of a satsang format, and then he would probably talk a little bit more about bhajans at all of the venues. So we won't repeat what we did today, but we would just continue. So for those of you who want to attend tomorrow, that would be at Marabella Sai Center at 4:30 p.m. I repeat, 4:30 p.m. And on Monday night for Mahashivratri, Brother Rushi would be spending the entire Akhanda Bhajan at the Port of Spain Sai Center, and that would be starting at 5:30 with Rudram chanting, and then at 6 o'clock we'll start bhajans, and we'll finish at 6 a.m. Right? So for any more information that you may need, you can contact me, you can contact Brother Shrishti. Almost all of the programs will also be live, so you all can tune in on the Thank You Swami page. And well, again, Brother Rushi, I just have to thank you so much. So we would now continue with the rest of our bhajans. So I'll just ask you to come back here while I take the...
Thank you so much for all the wonderful Trinidadian hospitality that I've experienced in the last one day, and really looking forward to interacting with many of you in the coming days. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Nath Bhagawan, Sai Nath Bhagawan,
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 Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Sai Nath Bhagawan,
Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Sai Nath Bhagawan,
Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Sai Nath Bhagawan.
Satyam Shivam Sundaram, Sai
Sangham Sharanam Gacchami.
Sangham Sharanam Gacchami.
Saisha Charanam Gacchami.
Sharanam Gacchami.
Sathya Saisha Sharanam Gacchami.
Saisha Sharanam Gacchami.
Sai Nath Bhagawan. Sai Nath Bhagawan.
Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Srinivasa
Balaji Govinda Saisha.
Balaji Govinda Saisha.
Balaji Govinda Saisha.
Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Paramadayala Tirumalai Vasa. Paramadayala Tirumalai Vasa.
Paramalakshmi Vallabhaisha. Paramalakshmi Vallabhaisha. Pundarikaksha Sava Vinasha. Pundarikaksha Papa Vinasha. Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha. Balaji Govinda Saisha. Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha. Paramadayala Tirumalai Vasa. Paramalakshmi Vallabhaisha. Pundarikaksha Papa Vinasha. Pundarikaksha Papa Vinasha. Srinivasa Sri Venkatesha.
Shiva Nataraj, Nataraj, we surrender.
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 Jai 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 we surrender.
Come lift the veil of illusion.
Come lift the veil of illusion.
Come lift the veil of illusion.
Come lift the veil
Nataraja Raja
Nataraja Nataraja Natana Shekhara Raja
Shiva Raja Shiva Raja Natana Shekhara Raja
Shiva Raja Natana Shekhara Raja
Shiva Shiva Namo Hara Hara Namo
Shiva Shiva Namo Hara Hara Namo
Shankara Shiva Nataraja
Shankara Shiva Nataraja
Nataraja Nataraja Natana Shekhara Raja
Nataraja Nataraja Natana Shekhara Raja
Hari Om 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 Hari Om
Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om
Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om
Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om Hari Om
Chandi Janani Maa
Chandi Janani Maa
Rana Chandi Janani Maa
Rana Chandi Janani Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai 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 Maa
Chandi Janani Maa
Rana Chandi Janani Maa
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Ambe Bhavani Maa Jaya Maa
Ambe Bhavani Maa Jaya Maa
Sai Bhavani Maa
Sai Bhavani Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai 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 Maa
Chandi Janani Maa
Rana Chandi Janani Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai 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 Maa
Chandi Janani Maa
Rana Chandi Janani Maa
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Jnana Pradayini Durita Nivarini
Ambe Bhavani Maa Jaya Maa
Ambe Bhavani Maa Jaya
Jai Jai
Maa
Maa Jai Jai Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai Maa
Chandi Rana Chandi Bhava Chandi Janani Maa
Chandi Rana Chandi Bhava Chandi Janani Maa
Jai Jai Maa Jai Jai 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 Maa
Chandi
Janani Maa.
Chandi Janani Maa.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Danza, 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 Señor, a tu tambor. Lléname, lléname, lléname de amor.
Danza, 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 Señor, a son del tambor. Líñame, líñame, líñame de amor.
Danza, 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 Señor, a tu tambor. Lléname, lléname, lléname de amor.
Danza, 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 Señor, a son del tambor. Líñame, líñame, líñame de amor.
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Dios, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Dios, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva
Shiva!
Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, de mi corazón.
Danza, 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 Señor, a tu tambor. Lléname, lléname, lléname de amor.
Danza, 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 Señor, danza del tambor. Líñame, líñame, líñame de amor.
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
Shiva Nataraya,
Shiva!
de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, Shiva Nataraja, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, Shiva Nataraya, de mi corazón.
Señor, 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 Shiva Nataraya, Señor, 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 Mahadeva Sai.
Ram Rahim Krishna Karim,
Ram Rahim, Krishna Karim,
Ram Rahim Krishna Karim,
Ram Rahim, Krishna Karim,
Bhaj man Ram Rahim Rahim,
Bhaj man Ram Rahim, Rahim.
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम।
वो है राम वही रहीम,
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 वो है कृष्णा वही करीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही रहीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही करीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही रहीम।
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम।
बोलो
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम,
राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
वो है राम वही 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 रहीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही करीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही रहीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही करीम,
वो है कृष्णा वही रहीम।
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
बोलो भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
भज मन राम रहीम रहीम,
राम रहीम कृष्ण करीम।
धिमिका धिमिका धुम, धिमिका धिमिका धुम, नाचे बोला नाथ। धिमिका धिमिका धुम, धिमिका धिमिका धुम, नाचे बोला नाथ। धिमिका धिमिका धुम, धिमिका धिमिका धुम, नाचे बोला नाथ।
धिमिका धिमिका दिल, धिमिका धिमिका दिल, नाचे भोला नाथ,
नाचे बोला नाथ,
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 नाचे भोला नाथ,
मृदंग बोले शिव शिव शिव,
मृदंग बोले शिव शिव शिव,
डमरू बोले हर हर हर,
डमरू बोले हर हर हर,
वीणा बोले साई राम साई राम,
वीणा बोले साई राम साई राम,
नाचे बोला नाथ,
नाचे भोला नाथ,
नाचे बोला
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ,
नाचे भोलानाथ।
मृदंग बोले शिव शिव शिव,
मृदंग बोले शिव शिव शिव,
डमरू बोले हर हर हर,
डमरू बोले हर हर हर,
वीणा बोले साई राम साई राम,
वीणा बोले साई राम साई राम।
नाचे भोलानाथ,
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 नाचे भोलानाथ।
धिमिका धिमिका धिम, धिमिका धिमिका धिम, नाचे भोलानाथ।
नारायण नारायण जय जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरि, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि,
नारायण नारायण जय गोविंद हरे, नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
जय जय गोविंद हरि, जय जय गोपाल हरि,
जय जय गोविंद हरे, जय जय गोपाल हरे,
साई गोविंद हरि, साई गोपाल हरि,
साई गोविंद हरे, साई गोपाल हरे,
नारायण नारायण जय गोपाल हरि। अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर, अल्लाहु अकबर। अवल अल्लाह नूर पाया, कुदरत के सब बंदे एक नूर ते सब जग उपजियारा। कौन मंदे, कौन भले, कौन मंदे। राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
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 हरि नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
हरि नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
हरि नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
नाम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
मन मंदिर में दिया उजाला,
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 राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
हरि नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
हरि नाम बोलो, साई नाम बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
साई रामा परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
परम दयाला,
मन मंदिर में दिया उजाला,
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 राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम बोलो,
अल्लाह साई बोलो, मौला साई बोलो,
अल्लाह साई बोलो, मौला साई बोलो,
नानक साई बोलो, गोविंद साई बोलो,
नानक साई बोलो, गोविंद साई बोलो,
अल्लाह साई बोलो, मौला 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 साई बोलो,
नानक साई बोलो, गोविंद साई बोलो,
नानक साई बोलो, गोविंद साई बोलो,
अल्लाह साई बोलो, मौला 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 साई बोलो,
राम हरे हरि नाम हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा घन श्याम म्हणा मेघ श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा घन श्याम म्हणा मेघ श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
ईश म्हणा सर्वेश म्हणा परतीश म्हणा साईश 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 म्हणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा राधा श्याम म्हणा मेघ श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा घन श्याम म्हणा मेघ श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
श्याम म्हणा घन श्याम म्हणा मेघ श्याम म्हणा साई श्याम म्हणा.
ईश म्हणा सर्वेश म्हणा परतीश म्हणा साईश 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 म्हणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
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 साई गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
साई गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
हरी हरी गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
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 साई गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
साई गोविंद गोपाल हरी नारायणा.
हरी म्हणा तुम्ही गोविंद म्हणा तुम्ही गोपाल म्हणा साई नारायणा.
शांति शांति शांति.
Let us all stand for Arati.
ओम जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे. भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक पति महेश्वरा. ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपथे स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपथे आश्रित कल्पलतिका आश्रित कल्पलतिका आपद्बान्धवा ॐ जय जगदीश हरे मातपिता गुरुदैवमो मणियन्तयो नीवे स्वामी मणियन्तयो नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्र शयना ॐ जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप जय श्री साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल आरती अंदुको मंगल आरती अंदुको मंदर गिधारे ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम जय नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति 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 समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
Come to light the lamp of love in our hearts, to see that it shines day by day with added luster. He has not come on behalf of any exclusive religion. He has not come on any mission of publicity for any sect, creed, or cause, nor has he come to collect followers for any doctrine. He has no plan to attract disciples or devotees into his fold or any fold. He has come to tell us of this unitary faith, this spiritual principle, this path of love, this virtue of love, this duty of love, this obligation to love.